Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Give a round of applause. Coming to the stage now is somebody that's really cool. And to me, I kind of geeked out, and I'm kind of glad that he actually had the opportunity to come and spend time here at our theater. I worked at a theater called Second City for many years, and I was in the Satellite Theater in Detroit from July 30th, 1997 at 12:37 p.m. to August 19th, 2003 at 4:04 p.m. Because at 4:04, I had a phone call from Kelly Leonard saying, "Come be on main stage here in Chicago." So I moved from Detroit. I cast out my 401k and moved to Chicago. And you can get your 401k in one day. Did you know that? If you start screaming loud enough and against heavy penalties, you can get it. You really can. But moved here, and as you know, Second City is a magnificent tradition, and you know, within the entity of Second City, there's always great writers, people who write really, really well. Like Tina Fey was one of our greatest writers, and great improvisers, people who were just like brilliant improvisers. Like Steve Colbert was so funny as an improviser. Then there was like the actors who were improvisers, like Peter Boyle. You guys remember Peter Boyle? Peter Boyle was the father on Everybody Loves Raymond. He was Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder. Like, these guys were amazing people, and I was really honored to be a part of that institution. But there's those guys who go through Second City, and everybody at Second City knows who these guys are. And like, if you were on the stage, or in the touring company, you know, like the greats within this company. And this gentleman that you guys are going to see tonight has performed with Meryl Streep, Kevin Spacey, and he was known in the inner circle of Second City as one of the great writers at Second City. And I'm really happy that he's here, because I geeked out when I first, like, he was like, "Yeah, I want to do your show." People were like, "What?" Then I did this actually. I was like, like that, which was really fun. And I do that often, and we'll do that for you after the show as you leave. But coming to the stage now, just a wonderful performer, writer. He's a lawyer, right? Like, the man's like a lawyer. He's a mainstay in Second City. He's in movies with Meryl Streep. It's like, man, I got 6 kids. Exactly. But coming to the stage, wonderful talent, and I'm really honored that he's here. Please put your hands together for Mr. Richard Thomas.
Good evening.
Good evening, Richard.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is the spirit of what we're doing here this evening. That is the spirit of improvisation. I walk into the space, I assert myself, you are open, you assert yourself. I know I was introduced, but I'd like to clarify my introduction. My name is Richard Thomas, and I am a master improviser. As a matter of fact, people who know about the art form will tell you that I may be the greatest improviser who has ever lived. I certainly think that I am the greatest improviser that ever lived. Now, let me tell you something about art. Art has boundaries. So the performance that I'm going to do today must run between 35 and 40 minutes. And I'll explain to you why in a moment. So this is my wife, Paula.
Hey, Paula.
Hi, Paula. And Paula, I'd like to ask you to, we haven't talked about this before, have we, Darla? No. What I'd like to ask you to do is, if you could keep time, And do you ever watch a phone, something?
To the millisecond.
A millisecond, good. Good, because we want precision. Because improvisation is a precise form. So at the 32-minute mark, there you go. I want you to do directly what I tell you to. All right? Just like at home. Just like at home. So, at the 32-minute mark, I want you to say 32 minutes, not 32, not about 32, not the time is running out, but 32 minutes, please. Can you do that, dear?
I'll try.
At the 36-minute mark, I want you to say 36 minutes. Can you do that?
I'll try.
Very good. At the 40-minute mark, this is precisely what I want you to say. I want you to say, Mr. Thomas, your time is up. Can you say that? Fuck you. Oh, thank you. Now we really are at home. So if you could say, Mr. Thomas, and by the way, Paula, I want to tell you this in front of all these lovely people from the bottom of my heart. We haven't had an opportunity to renew our vows. But I'd just like to say how much I admire you for living in the shadow of the world's greatest improviser for all these years. Because you know, every genius is supported by several people of lesser intellect. And I'm very, very happy to have your support.
32 minutes.
Everybody's got to get into the act. Well, anyway. Now, what I have here in my hand is a manuscript of a book that I have written about improvisation. And I'll never forget what one of my closest friends said to me when I presented him with this book. He told me, it's seared on my mind. He said, who the hell needs another book about improvisation? This was exactly what he said. But we do need this book. It's a very important book. But there's an improvisational maxim. Can you tell me what maxim means? Oh boy, it's going to be a long night. There's an improvisational maxim. Tenet. Objective. Just roll with it. Go in context. A maxim which says, show, don't tell. So in order to show you what is in this book, and to show you what great improvisation is, I am going to improvise an improvised feat of great achievement, suitable for a master improviser, for the greatest improviser who ever lived. I'm going to read a line from this book. And as you know, when you improvise, or any of you, when you've spoken extemporaneously, there's a tendency to want to digress. There's a tendency to want to talk about other things. I am going to be very concise and focused. I am going to read the exact line. I'm going to let the book make the point. And then I'm going to move through the text, not directly to the next line, but I'm going to move through the text and come to another line. And you're going to find that by the end of this 40 minutes, there is going to be a coherent story, a coherent piece, which is going to show a totality of the book. Show, not explain. And from that all, we can all learn much about improvisation. And, by extension, life. Because what is the artist, and I am the artist? Who is the artist? Than a person that knows more about life than any of you do. Let me begin. Remember, I'll stay to what I read in the book, and I will not digress. I will not digress at all. The artist is someone who is unable to do things as others do them. Well, you know what that makes me think of? I was just thinking, basically, people confuse originality with authenticity. But you don't have to worry about being original or clever in life. All you have to do is be yourself. Be yourself. But is it easy to be oneself? No, it's not easy to be oneself. So what you do is you focus. You focus on the game. You focus on what you're doing, your task, and you will blossom through the task. So for example, what I'm doing is I read a line and I don't digress at all. I let the line speak for itself and I move to the next line. As a master improviser. Once I was improvising in an extraordinary fashion, in a way that actually remade the form. And I played in a scene an African-American woman. And someone asked me, how can you play an African-American woman? How is it possible? Where do you have the temerity? Do you know what temerity means? Jesus. All right. Let's get in the game. Let's get in the game and let's raise your game, everybody. How can you play an African-American woman? And I said, we are all different, but we all share a universality. And we wear our characters lightly as we wear a hat or coat. And that way, we can have commonality and we can also respect diversity in the same motion. If you will recall what I said earlier, that one asserts oneself and is open to what comes to one in the same motion. If we do this, we will have a greater world. For improvisation will save the world. Because the fact of the matter is that the world is really a piece of shit. And it needs it. And by the way, let me digress for a moment. Now, I was reading an article in the New York Times yesterday. I read the New York Times. That's why I know what temerity means. So, I read the New York Times, and I was reading the New York Times, and it was a story about this guy that worked with Paul Manafort. You know Paul Manafort? Who was Trump's first campaign manager, who did all these deals with Russia and with this dictator in the Ukraine. And the guy's really a scumbag, like everybody around Trump and Trump himself. It's just like, bleh. So, as you all know. So, I'm reading this, and I'm not really surprised. It's like, oh, okay, here's one of these assholes we haven't heard about yet. But then, they mentioned something. This guy, Tad Devine. Does anybody know who Tad Devine is? You see, this is one thing you want to do as an improviser. You want to come in with some information and you want to lord it over everybody. This is the meaning of art. For example, when I said that there was a frame around this improvisation, you know what this improvisation is most like? It's like that beautiful painting by Bob Surratt in the Art Institute. Someday in Lure Park, in fact, Georges down by the river. Have you seen this thing where they're having a picnic and they're all little points? They're all little points of light, which makes me think that he was for the original Bush. 1,000 points of light. The original Bush. He wasn't the original Bush. And by the way, what is this tight-ass thing about not digressing? That's the point. Improvisation is a digression because we make connections and our mind goes forward and it changes in an effective way. Do I talk like this when we're at home? I don't. No, this is a lot of bullshit. But anyway, I digress. We continue. So anyway, Tad Devine worked with Paul Manafort. Manafort was part of Manafort and Stone or something. He consults with dictators. And he gets them either elected or whatever they have to do to maintain power. Really a piece of shit. And if I can digress again, there is a law firm in Washington, D.C. that's on a $40,000 a month retainer from the government of Sudan. I don't know enough about the government of Sudan, but I know there are a bunch of fucking criminals. And by the way, the use of the bad language, fucking, and everything else, mass murderers, pieces of shit. What I completely stand behind all the profanity related to these people. Because I'll tell you something right now. I am, in August, I am going to be 62 years old. And all the work, and I bet this is true of everybody in this room, all the work I've ever done in my life has either been because I needed a job and I had to support myself, or because there was something I really enjoyed doing and I tried to be successful at that thing. I never decided that I was going to defend the fucking government of Sudan. And if you think I'm going to stand up when one of these rich pricks walks out into a room, I will not do it. Because they're the scum of the earth. And the whole system is rotten. Because Tad Devine was Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. Okay, that's a professional job. And what did Tad Devine do for Bernie Sanders? He did the same thing that Paul Manafort and Tad Devine were doing for this asshole in the Ukraine. And then in 2012, Tad Devine decided that he was going to resign from representing the president of Ukraine, who had won the election that he consulted with him on, because the president of Ukraine was putting his opponent in jail. Lock her up! That's what fucking dictators do. So then he decided, oh, you've gone too far. But he was all right with all the other bullshit that this guy represented, because it put money in his pocket. And then he could go on TV, and he could go to the opera and say that he was one of the sponsors of the opera, or the sponsors of the Art Institute, and support all this fucking art, and all this philanthropy, and live in a big house, and be a big deal. And everybody thinks that's fucking important. And it's not fucking important. And it's not jealousy that makes any of us feel that these people are full of shit. It's decency. That's a little digression that's not directly about improvisation. Son of a bitch. Enough's enough. This is, you know what I've decided to do in my life as an improviser? I am an idealist. I'm going to live my own life as if I were in the America that I learned about in the civics class in the 7th and 8th grade. I'm going to live like there's equality, and I'm going to live like it's one person, one vote, and I'm going to live like there's a democracy and checks and balances, because America, if it's not about those ideas, America is fucking nothing. Nothing! But living from that idea is really something. And it's our only hope to salvage anything. But I'll tell you, I thought I was a smart guy. I thought I had a lot of years on me. I had experience. I thought I knew everything. And that was quite an insight, just looking at the fact that fucking Tad Devine was working with Paul fucking Manafort. You ever see this sleazebag? Aurelio. These greaseballs? He's working with him. He's making money with the president of Ukraine. And that's why, by the way, Trump is always like, he's got a problem with the president of Germany, he's got a problem with anybody in a democracy, but boy, you put that piece of shit from the Philippines that's like murdering people left and right around him, and he's giving him a big hug. He goes to Saudi Arabia, he loves those motherfuckers. He loves all the dictators. Because, but you know, he is running. He isn't that different from what we've had. It's just out in the open. I saw Senator Patrick Leahy, supposedly a Democratic senator, on TV. And he's saying to Trump, he said, oh, I wish you would stop those tweets. If he was my lawyer, I'd tell him this. And it's ha ha ha. And not like I'm completely outraged. This guy is an illegitimate president. This is a manipulated election by a foreign power. He's a crook. He's getting paid off by Russia. No. Is there any of that outrage? No. You know why? Because they're on the take too. So that's another lesson about improvisation. The world's a piece of shit. And if there's anything that's going to make this world better, it's going to be you. And believe me, you're a lovely person, a lovely young person. And I just picked on you, and I don't want to pick on you. But I'm going to tell you something right now. What you got to do is like, you got to know this shit. And you got to be something else. Because if you're not something else, the world will be a complete piece of shit. With no decency in it whatsoever. Okay. Back to sketch comedy. Introduction to process. Well, the magic of improvisation. I'll leave that alone. Other than oh yeah, people get improvisation backwards. People think improvisation is about going up on a stage and ad-libbing. And those of you that are improvisers, it's like being quick and coming up with stuff. I'll tell you, there's two places. I'm actually serious about this, about the art form and even the comedic art form. There are two places where the scene is. The scene is either because and usually both places, then you come up loaded, and I don't mean drunk or high or anything like that. Then you come up loaded with all of your feelings and thoughts and your impression that you're really engaged with the world, that you feel every moment in the world. If a attendant is rude to you going out of a parking garage, you feel it. You feel everything. And then you bring that to the stage, and what you do is that you meet the present moment with the people that you're with what you're filled with. So, for example, if this was an audience of like 8-year-olds, I wouldn't say fuck someone. And there's just like you adapt. There's another place where the scene is. The scene is here. Here. The scene is between the people. It's not in being clever. It's not in making up a story. It's not in trying to be funny. Another thing, too, and this is something that nobody really believes, but it's true. If you're thinking too much about whether somebody likes what you're doing or doesn't like what you're doing, if you're thinking too much about whether you're getting over or not, whether you're popular, you're not doing it. I mean, normally I wouldn't say that. Because if I were under the illusion that I was a couple of years ago, when we had this brief moment where like the president had class, for me, for once it wasn't some guy out in the middle of the woods chopping a fucking log somewhere, I mean, the guy, they went to New York. They go to a play. They go to dinner. They had some class. He was intelligent. But, the same shit was going on. It had nothing to do with him, or it had everything to do with him. It had everything to do with all of us. But we're not at that moment now. We're at a moment where the assholes that have been making our lives as miserable as they can for a long time are completely out in the open. And if we don't have a counter move, they will kill us. Okay? And that's no joke. I made a joke in a performance, and I tape the performances, I show them on social media. So I made a joke in a performance, and someone was outraged. They thought this was in terrible taste. I said that in the Holocaust, Hitler killed 6 million Jews. In Trump's healthcare plan, 24 million people will be thrown off of Medicaid. I figure Trump is ahead 24-6. Now, I like that you're nodding your head. It's like, personally, I even thought it was funny, but you didn't. But I think that, people are outraged. So, what are they outraged about? It's not hyperbole. They want people to die in the street. I don't know what the difference is between something like the Holocaust during World War II, which was industrialization, and throwing people off of Medicaid, which is basically killing people through financial instruments. One mass murder happened in a factory. This time it's happening in a bank. What the fuck's the difference? When you're smiling, just want to lighten things up a little so we can keep going. Honey, I'd like to sing one to you. You are the wind beneath my wings. The wind. Did you ever know you are my hero? I don't know any of the other words. I can fly higher than an eagle. Oh boy, sentimentality and romance ain't gonna do shit for us, friends. Sorry. We continue. Who's home? I like it. Yeah, please sing. Life's a piece of shit. When you think of it, there's tyrants everywhere who are cheating and stealing. You have to stand up and be something different, or else they'll eat you like you were a steak. So always look on the bright side of life. Art is a search for reality. Anybody want to do a little improv? Want to actually do a little improv? First we can, are you guys willing to do this? Let's have everybody stand up. Okay. This is the basic improvisational exercise. Just stand there with your hands to your side. Out of your pockets, I'm talking to you. Out of your pocket, you see this? Now, you see the way my feet are? It's like my weight's distributed over the feet. You have your hands, you're just relaxing there. You're looking at me, I'm looking at you. Turn and look at each other. Just for a second, turn and look at each other. No, don't act. Stand there, that bullshit. Don't act. Just look at each other. No bullshit, just look. No, stop that. Stop that shit. Just look at each other. Is this the way you really get to la 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 la? Okay, that's good. Have a seat. You did great. You're all improvisers. That's improvisation. And there's 2 satisfied customers. So it's like, that's improvisation. That's what it is. Now I brought that up because it says in my manuscript, the book that I wrote a book. The heart of improvisation is that. And if you do it, what will happen is transformation. That's where change happens. It's too complicated right now. How are we doing on time here, Tom?
24 minutes and 7 seconds.
24 and 7 seconds. That's incredible. Okay. Oh, I just like this line, but I think it's something to think about every time that you improvise. This is from a film by Charlie Kaufman. Charlie Kaufman, he did this film called Anomalisa. It was a cartoon, actually, but this is a tremendous line. The power structure wants people to be ignorant so they can do their stupid jobs and fight their stupid wars. I'm not going to digress on that one. I'm just going to repeat it. The power structure wants people to be ignorant so that they can do their stupid jobs and fight their stupid wars. Well, I will digress a little bit because, I don't know, when Trump first came on the scene, when he was first running for office, I laughed a lot at him. You're shaking your head. Did you laugh too? He was funny, right? In a way. Well, he was funny because he was a stupid asshole, right? So you'd laugh at him. But I think a mistake that I was making is that the people with this power, you think that they're going to be real smart or diabolical or something? They're fucking stupid. They're stupid. Look at every policy that he has. Look at what he just did this week with Cuba. Reversing, this lovely thing is happening. People in Cuba, they're starting to make money. American tourists are going down there. There's this exchange of culture. They're 90 miles off of our shore. We're starting to get along with them. Corporations are starting businesses. He starts pulling all that back. Stupid. How about this travel ban that they're not going to let them do? Oh, we're just not going to let any Muslims into the country. He's bigoted. Stupid! You're a bigot. And then the court stopped it. It never happened. And there have been no terrorist attacks based on Muslims coming from these countries. So, dictatorships are stupid. They're not smart. I have one here, the grand tradition of lecturing people. So this is in a real grand tradition. Okay. You're responsible for everything we use. So, the grand tradition of lecturing people. Here's the deal. No matter what you're doing, and by the way, when you improvise, it's not just on a stage. Whatever your jobs are. If you work, if you manage, if you teach, whatever you do, whatever your profession is, here's what we do all the time. We tell a story and we make a case. We tell a story because that's the way human beings connect with each other. We tell each other stories. That's how we check in. I'm not saying I did it well, but that's why I could play an African American woman. Because I could find a story from my past and put it into the story of this woman that I was acting. And by the way, that happens all the time. I mean, Kate Blanchett played Bob Dylan. What's that? I'm sorry?
28 minutes.
I think what I told you was precisely to say 32, 36, and Mr. Thomas, your time is up. In which I will follow with copyright 2017, Richard Thomas, citizen, artist, and master improviser. Greatest improviser of all time. So we're always lecturing people. They say don't lecture people. You're always making an argument. You're always telling a story, and you're making a case. We tell stories for a reason. Tell a little kid. You know why? Because Grandpa did that. He touched the stove, and his hand was burned, and he had to go to the hospital. So you're telling a story. You're making a case. We are always doing it. And it's not arguing like, necessarily that we're in conflict with each other. But we're always making an argument. We're always like telling each other, first we tell the story. So we say, hey, you know what? We're the same. We're different, but we're the same. Never just we're the same, because we aren't. But we are. It's a paradox. It's okay. I mean, we're gonna work this. We're gonna work this. Tell a story and make a case. Oh, here's another thing too, about preparation. The idea of, Trump said this in the beginning of The Art of the Deal. He said, I never prepare. I improvise everything. You're shaking your head. You know this? Oh, you're with me. You're communing.
Yes.
That was an emotional nod, not like, okay, so I'll keep telling the story. So Trump says at the beginning of The Art of the Deal, he said, I never prepare. I just improvise. He sucks as an improviser. Improvising is not just making it fucking up as you go along, like sitting with Lester Holt said, yes, I don't know who made the arrangements for the dinner, but Comey came to see me. Yes, he came to see me, and, well, I told him that it was a job interview, sort of, but I told him, I said, could you please, he thought this was an obstruction of justice, because he was trying to make it like he didn't tell Comey what to do, which is complete bullshit. This guy should be out on his ass tonight. But he said, this was ridiculous, but I asked him, I said, could you please maybe think of Michael Flynn? Do you think you could stop the investigation of Michael Flynn? Do you think you could, maybe? Because Michael Flynn knows a lot of shit about me, and if he ever flipped, I'd be in a lot of trouble. Do you think you could? That's an improviser? That's not an improviser. An improviser knows what the fuck that they're doing. And excuse me, again, fuck related to Trump, I will say it every day, 5 million times a day if I could. Fuck Trump, fuck Trump. It's hard. Fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. Fuck Trump. 32 minutes. Thank you, miss. You did that very well. That 24 minute 8 seconds was a little bit insubordinate. Insubordinate? We got to get the flashcards. George Orwell, the great George Orwell, 1984. He said 6 rules about writing. And one of the things that he said that you could really calm me on tonight, and I'm doing it for a point, because one of the things he said is break all the rules, is he said you should say things as simply as you can possibly say them. But what happens is if we don't have words, okay, and I'll tell you, if you talk to me about math, I mean, I don't think I can divide anymore. I really don't. I don't think I can do long division anymore. But so it's not like Einstein's in front of you. But the thing about words is, which isn't about being smart, like, whatever, to make money. If we don't have the words, we can't talk about stuff that's really happening. We can't define reality if we don't have the words. So you have to go out and get those words. It's up the game. Get ready, people. Assistant, where am I?
33 minutes and 34 seconds.
So I'm 2 minutes and 24 seconds, give or take a few seconds from 36. Okay. Here's one thing about art. And I tell you all to be artists. Because art is what's going to solve this. This really isn't about politics. All this stuff with Trump. It's not about politics. This is about humanity and morality. There's a reason why these bastards cut all the theater programs and cut all the English departments and emphasize everything in terms of everything that has to do with quantifiable things, numbers. Everything that has to do with quantities. There's a reason why they want that. Because they want us, first of all, they're getting to a point, everything's getting automated. They don't even give a shit if we work. They don't give a shit if we work. They don't give a shit if we eat. There was a congressman, one of the congressmen, they asked him, they were talking about food stamps. He said, do you think everybody has a right to a meal, has a right to food? He wouldn't answer the question. They don't give a shit if we're educated. They don't care if we have health care. They don't give a shit if we die. Do you get it? That's the joke to really get. Get that joke. And sometimes people would listen to me and say, oh, you're some sort of socialist or something. I have no political ideology whatsoever. None. None. You know what my ideology is? Is decency. How can there even be a moment where a farce like that man is the President of the United States? He's evidence that something has gone terribly wrong. He's a criminal. He's crude. You know, you could say, well, you're saying fuck left and right. Why are you calling him out for crude? Because I'm not the President of the United States. That's why. Because I'm a citizen and I'm freaking out. That's why. Oh, here's another thing, too. If you want to improvise, if you're going out there, of course you're going to have good shows and you should really enjoy it. But if you go out there and every show is good, you're not doing it right. Because to have a voice is to struggle. It's a struggle. I feel, you know, you're younger people. I mean, most of you are a lot younger than me.